Today I have to come to a topic that I didn't get the chance to report on last week, but I think it's important. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak cancelled a last-minute meeting with his Greek counterpart Kyriakos Mitsotakis because he had called for the Parthenon marble statues in the British Museum to be returned to Greece. But a survey shows that the majority of Brits are siding with Greece here. A poll by YouGov found that 66% of respondents thought Downing Street's decision to cancel the meeting with Mitsotakis was wrong, while 11% said it was right. The Greek Prime Minister was due to meet Sunak on Tuesday last week, but the British leader cancelled the evening before. And according to press reports in both countries, the reason for this was an interview Mitsotakis gave to the BBC. In it, he had insisted that the marble statues should be returned. The marble statues were removed from Greece by Lord Elgin in 1801 to 1804 when Greece was under the rule of the Ottoman Empire. In 1806 the sculptures were brought to Britain, and 10 years later the English government acquired them from Elgin. They have been in the British Museum ever since. The Greeks say that it was theft and that they must be returned to where they belong, and that's namely Athens. Britain claims that Elgin's move came with the permission of the Ottoman Empire, which ruled Athens at the time. The same poll found that 49% of respondents think it is right to return the marble statues to Greece, and 15% want to keep them in the UK, and 26% said they are not interested in what will happen, while 10% answered don't know. Athens, which reacted strongly to the British diplomatic faux pas, as they called it, attributes Sunak's behavior to internal British politics. Greek government sources said 2024 will be a difficult election year for the UK and especially for Sunak, who is quite trailing Labour Party leader Keir Starmer in the polls. I understand that Sunak is struggling with the polls, is what the head of the Prime Minister's press office, Dimitris Tsiodras, told Mega TV. He suspects that Sunak is trying to attract Conservative voters with this move. The Greek Foreign Ministry said late Tuesday that British Foreign Minister David Cameron had requested a brief meeting with his Greek counterpart Kyriakos Mitsotakis on the sidelines of the NATO Foreign Ministers Summit in Brussels. The Greek Foreign Minister noted the principal disagreement on the issue of repatriating the statues, but the two ministers agreed that cooperation was necessary to preserve relations between Greece and the UK and address common challenges. Greece appears eager to de-escalate tensions with London, but at the same time unwilling to sweep the debate over the marble statues and just sweep them under the carpet. The Greeks insist they are continuing their talks with the British Museum directly. They want to intensify talks about cultural diplomacy amid growing support in Britain for the return of the marble statues. But Sunak already has enough problems. With at most a year until the election, Rishi Sunak and the British Conservatives do indeed need a strategy to perhaps turn things around. There's a lot of discussion among Conservative politicians and consultants about what a so-called game changer could be and where the dividing line with the opposition Labour Party should lie. Sunak's two attempts to give such a starting signal have already failed. Neither his party conference speech in October had any effect, in which he surprisingly positioned himself as a candidate of epochal change, the 30-year status quo I'm here to end. And even though he and his party have been governing the country for many years, nor did the announcement of the government manifesto as part of the King's Speech with its numerous legislative initiatives, but which lacked an overarching political narrative. Prime Minister Sunak is perceived as a technocrat, and accordingly he wants to be measured less by his, lack of charisma and more by his performance. The good news for him is that his challenger, Labour leader Keir Starmer, is equally uncharismatic. However, while Starmer has the advantage of being judged by his words as opposition leader, for Sunak and the ruling Tories, what matters most is concrete results. As early as January of this year, he announced his 5 priorities, so 5 political goals by which he personally and the entire government's work would be measured. You remember, I fully expect you to hold my government and I to account on delivering these goals. He announced that his government wanted to halve inflation, increase economic output and reduce the country's debt burden. Waiting times for patients in the National Health Service, the NHS, should also be shortened, and illegal migration across the English Channel in rubber boats should be stopped. Well, the balance after 1 year is quite mixed. On the plus side, inflation has already halved from 10.7% to 4.6%. When it comes to economic performance and debt reduction, things don't look so clear. The definitive figures won't be available until next year. And waiting times in the NHS are also still very high, with 7.7 million people waiting for treatment in England alone in September. And when it comes to illegal migration, the government communicates that everything would be going according to plan. In the entire year of 2022, 45,755 people made the dangerous journey across the English Channel. In 2023, as of October, there have been 27,284, a third fewer than at the same time last year. However, the illegal migration bill passed by the government in July probably contributed less to this. The core of the legislative package, which provides for the deportation of illegal refugees by plane to Rwanda, has already been struck down as unlawful by the Supreme Court. It can be assumed that economic development and the cost burden on the general population will play a dominant role in the election campaigns. A positive balance in the 3 economic policy priorities is therefore not unimportant for Sunak. Nevertheless, the Tories need 1 or 2 more topics in the election campaign that are suitable as so-called wedge issues. That means controversial topics with which they can set a clear counterpoint to Labour or as well the Liberal Democrats. Sunak's party conference speech and the King's speech suggest that the issues of energy and climate as well as internal security could play a central role. Against the background of high burdens for companies and ordinary citizens, Sunak has already cautiously moderated the very ambitious British climate policy. A climate policy with a sense of proportion would indeed provide a clear counterpoint to Labour and Lib Dems. By announcing that they will return to annual licensing procedures for oil and gas from the North Sea, his government wants to make maximum use of its own energy reserves, ensure the resilience of the energy supply, and protect consumers from rising energy prices. On the issue of internal security, the Tories will try to brand Labour as too hesitant to tackle violence, hate, and above all, illegal migration. The call to stop the boats, that means to stop the illegal smuggling of refugees across the English Channel, has already become a central slogan of the Conservative agenda. This could prove to be a boomerang because of the government's plan to deport illegal refugees to Rwanda without trial. Yeah, that has been banned by the courts, as I said. And James Cleverly, as the new Home Secretary, is already under enormous pressure to present a Plan B these days. But Rishi Sunak has also made this matter very much his own, not only because it is one of his 5 priorities, but also because the pressure from his parliamentary group to deliver here is enormous. And Rishi Sunak has now set up his government and the Conservative Party in terms of personnel and content as he sees fit. He thus takes full responsibility for the outcome of the election next year. The slogan he chose at the party conference in Manchester, the long-term decisions for a brighter future, underlines the claim that his Tories want to continue to be responsible for the nation's fate in the future. The decision will only be made on election day by the voters in the 650 constituencies, but there are many indications that the Conservative Party will soon do this from within the opposition. There's already speculation in Westminster about the direction the party will take in terms of personnel and content. First, another leader would have to be elected, then the 5th within just 5 years. It will be a battle for the soul of the party. but it is not at all certain that the National Conservative wing will prevail. Renowned party expert Tim Bale recently pointed out that Sunak's supporters will be disproportionately among those likely to retain their parliamentary seats. The parliamentary group plays the decisive role in the selection of candidates for an intra-party leadership election. It would therefore not be unlikely that the new leader comes from the current Sunak cabinet. In the long term, however, what will be crucial is whether the Conservative Party regains the strength and potential for the adaptability that has made it one of the most successful political parties in the Western world over many decades in the past. And if you want to see something else right now, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.